Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all well. Lovely to see you as always. I always feel like I should congratulate all of us for getting up early for yoga. So congratulations. So as always, you can let me know if there's anything that I need to know about. Just pop it in the chat to me and I'll see. But I know all of you, so pretty sure I know what's going on, unless you've been having any mishaps lately. Other than that, let's have some props ready. Blocks, blanket belt, we may or may not use them. In fact, I think we are going to use some blocks. So let's come on down, and as we mostly do, we will start by lying down so we can just have a little roll around, because we like that at 6:45 in the morning, don't we? So let's come on down, and we can just draw our knees in towards the chest. Now, I don't mind how you hold the knees. You can have a nice loose hold, have the knees apart, have the knees together. You can have a firmer hold if you want to tuck in tightly. And then you can just play with a little movement around the body here. So a little rocking, so easing out the body. Hopefully after a really good night's sleep. So as we move here, let's take this as an opportunity to find the breath. And as we find the breath here, we essentially find ourselves here. So that may not be an immediate experience, but we perhaps might notice that as we tune into our breath, that it kind of creates a pathway for us to follow. That it beckons us into a form of awareness that is beyond the sort of day-to-day awareness that we operate from. But it's what we might call a deeper level of awareness, a deeper level of connection with our own experience. Okay, we're going to open up the angle of the back of the knees, and we're either going to just catch hold of the shins or catch hold of the feet. So we've got this angle at the back of the knees, a right angle, or pretty much there, a right angle, and then continue with a little bit of rocking. If it feels tight, then I recommend that you just hold your thighs. It will be a little bit looser, a little bit more gentle on the body. So do whatever you need to do to adjust. And again, we can just hop onto that pathway of the breath. Let it draw us in. And it's a wonderful time to really draw in when we come to practice, particularly at this time of year when it's still dark outside when we begin our practice. It feels conducive to going deeper, going into the sort of darker layers. Okay, well done. Let's release the legs now and take our arms out wide and take a full deep breath here. Let the belly soften, let the pelvic floor soften. And feel the forehead soften, the jaw soften, so we can even relate those things to each other. As the forehead softens, the belly will follow that. And as the jaw softens, the pelvic floor will follow that. Okay, we can now have a little movement through the knees. Just let the knees move from side to side. And that's it. So there's again another little bit more waking up of the lower back area. And then I want you to feel into, if you want to move your arms and perhaps stretch the arms out up above your head, or move them around, go ahead. We would really like our practice to be deeply intuitive. So Patanjali states Pratibhadva Sarvam, which means through intuition we come into a state of all-knowing. And that's one of my favorite sutras from Patanjali. Through intuition we come into a state of all-knowing, because we're not being driven by expectation. We're not being driven by what we think we should be doing. We're not being driven by all of that stored up information that we've grasped hold of and think that that gives us the knowing. But we're guided by now, here and now, guided by listening and responding. Okay, we're going to roll ourselves onto our side now, and we're going to come up from our side. Fantastic. And we're going to come into a kneeling position. So into Vajrasana, you can face towards the screen for a moment, and I want you to take some support if you need that support. So you know what you need. You might need some support between your buttocks and the heels, so you can sit a little higher if you've got any knee issues there. You might need a little ankle support as well, so take that if you need it. And then just rest your hands there in your lap, either one hand on top of the other, in this mudra, called Dhyana mudra, meaning meditation mudra, or Bhairava mudra, named after deities. Or you can rest your palms down on your thighs, whatever feels comfortable. Now here in this Vajrasana, which is, it's kind of like, almost like the seated Tadasana, I think of it as. There is a deep settling, a coming into being. It's not a posture that's, providing we haven't got issues with our knees or hips, that overly taxes us. So as long as we've got our supports right, as needed, and then it gives us an opportunity to find this light lift up through the body, this upright position that is effortless. It gives us an opportunity to pull back into our breath as well. So again, to come back to that pathway, because we'll find that as we move through our yoga practice that we often stray off the path, sometimes in a good way, that we're exploring with intuition, and sometimes through the pathways of distraction. So the breath hones us back into this pathway of focus, dharana. Okay. We're going to bring ourselves up to a high kneeling position. So take some support underneath your knees if you need to. So you can fold up your mat. You can bring yourselves onto a folded blanket if you need to, if you're on a hard surface. We're going to have a little bit of space there between the knees. So just a hand width distance. And then the feet coming back behind us around about a hip width distance. And then we're going to deepen into the knees to rise up through the body. So again, let's think of this as being like a mini Tadasana, a mini mountain pose. So we'll roll the shoulders back and then let the arms release down. We'll tone the belly as we lift into the chest, and we'll breathe. Okay. Let's raise our arms up. That's it, lifting up. Urdhva Hastasana, so lifting arms raised. Okay, and Urdhva Bahu. And we can feel into this, and we can breathe, and we can play with a little movement there through the hips to sort of shimmy the body up. Toning the belly as you rise into the chest. Feeling into any movement. If you need to give yourself a little bit more space there at the base of the neck, take the arms a little wider. Bring the arms back in. So I'm playing with a little gentle swaying in order to lift my body up, in order to rise up through the center. Breath is Now, let's bring the arms down in a wide circle. Release, have a little shake out, have a little shimmy out. And then we're going to extend out the right leg. So I want you to take a step. So you're going to bring that leg forward. So we're going to have that knee bent. We're going to have the foot around about level with the front knee, or the back knee, sorry, of the left leg. And we're going to play with a little bit of movement here. So we're going to play with leaning into it so you can see that the hip of your back leg is going to come in towards the center, towards the midline. And we're going to tease out this stretch through the inner thigh, through the inner groin. We're going to stay light and lifted through the body as we do this. So keeping a little bit of tone in the belly, little light rising up through the chest. That's it, breathe. Okay. Now, we're going to bring ourselves into that kind of lunge type position. So letting the pelvis come down as the body rises up. So we're leaning. Pad out that back knee if you need to. So if it feels strong to be leaning on the knee in this way, more padding, fold over your mat. And then we're going to take our arms out wide. It's like a little mini Virabhadrasana number 2. Warrior 2. Okay, let's extend out into the fingertips. And just take a little drawing back of the arms so we can feel that engagement through the upper back and breathe into it. That's it, deep breaths. If it gets tight in the hip, feel free to lift up again and lunge back down. So you can play with movement. Again, I'll draw us back to that sutra. Pratibhadva sarvam. All knowing arises out of intuition. Okay, let's take it into little mini Parsvakonasana. So we're going to lean over that front leg. We're going to bring our forearm onto the thigh and take the top arm over. So we get a sense of extending through the side of the body. We're not going to quite get the same angle that we get in the full version of this pose, in the standing version, but we can feel into the same qualities of lengthening through the left side of the body, a little deepening through the forearm against the thigh, so we can get lift and openness through the chest. Breath. Okay, let's bring that top arm down. We'll stay forwards in this lunge position. We're going to lean back, and again, it's like a little mini Viparita Virabhadrasana. So we lift up through the front arm and we breathe. Okay, let's come on up, push through that front leg, and you probably need to lift the toes and again have a little bit of movement. Play around with it so we can loosen through the groin area and find your breath. Again, let's find that stream, let's find that pathway. And then when we return to this pathway, we're returning to this pathway that leads us into focus, that leads us into meditation, that leads us into absorption. Dharana Dhyana Samadhi. Okay, so we're going to keep that front foot lifted, so the ball of the foot lifted, coming onto the back of the heel. We might need to shimmy that foot a little further forwards. We're going to come into a mini Trikonasana. We're doing lots of mini poses today, you may have noticed. Okay, so we're going to raise up that lead arm. So raise up your right arm, cone belly. And deep breaths. Okay, now let's fold over. We'll bring our hand down onto the shin and we'll raise the top arm up. That's it, deep breath. And can you allow your facial muscles to relax into this? And notice, does that make a difference to the quality of your practice? Does it make a difference to the quality of your practice when we return to the breath? Does it make a difference to the quality of your practice when we apply vairagya to the practice? an element of not attaching, discretion, just allowing, being open. Okay, inhale and come up. Well done. Let's release the arms down. Let's shake it out, shimmy it out. Okay. We'll just bend that knee again and place the foot to the floor. Hopefully you're all feeling okay on that back knee, but we're going to lift it anyway. What we're going to do is we're going to turn the body around towards that front foot. So rotate on the back knee so the foot comes out behind you. And we'll just bring our hands down and we'll tuck the back toes and we'll lift that back knee so we can stretch it out because it probably wants a little stretch after kneeling for so long on that side. So we're coming into this lunge position. That's it. Play into it. Move back and forth as you need to. And that's it. Deep breaths. Okay. And we're going to land the back knee. We're going to come up. I'm going to take a breath in. Now this is where you may benefit from having two blocks. We're going to come forwards into a posture that's often called Ardha Hanumanasana, a half Hanuman pose, which is a half full front split. So don't be alarmed. We're not going anywhere near that, but I kind of think of this as being like a mini Parsvottanasana. So this is a posture that we do when we're standing. We fold over the front leg whilst the leg is an extension. So we're going to bring ourselves onto the back of the heel of that front leg. You may have your two blocks because it's early in the morning. We're probably not fully warmed up to fully fold over that leg just yet. So we're going to lift and we're going to lengthen and we're going to walk the blocks forwards. So we're coming over that front leg. Now, if it feels really tight on the back of the leg, play with a little bit of movement. Again, you can bend the knee a little and re-extend. Let's focus on the length through the front of the torso. So let's keep lifting up into the heart center so we don't collapse and just roll into this. Okay, it's a folding at the hip joint rather than a rounding through the back that happens. And again, the pathway that we move into is the pathway of the breath. It's not the pathway that is, in a way, I know this sounds paradoxical because we're working with the body, but it's not the pathway of the shape of the body that we're moving into. That's kind of a feature of the pathway. So in other words, we're not consuming ourselves with the idea that we have to get somewhere with this. But we're letting the breath take us there. Okay, well done. Let's bring ourselves up and we'll come up. And again, we'll bend that front knee. So we bring the foot flat to the floor. We're going to lift up the back knee. So tuck the back toes, bring your hands forwards, lift the back knee. And again, have a little movement out, a little play. Okay, well done. Let's bring that back knee down, lift the body up. Let's come back to the center so we can rotate ourselves in. Again, if you're needing padding for the knee, you can have padding. So we're going to do the same thing again on the other side with that. So we're going to extend out the left leg this time. And we're going to bring the foot to the mat so we can creep that foot forward so we've got space to lean into it. And again, we'll play with this action. So the foot of this back leg, what becomes your back leg, is directly behind the knee. And the foot of the front leg is pretty much in line with the front knee. And then we can play again with this movement. And as we play with this movement, I want you to feel into it. Don't let it be mechanical. Allow it to be a sensory experience, a sensual experience even. So we can feel into all of the sensations that we create in the body. You can feel into the loosening. You can feel into the opening. Okay, let's come into the lunge element of that. Let's rise up through the body. Let's take our arms out wide like we are in a little miniature warrior. And again, you may look over the front arm as you would normally in Virabhadrasana number 2. Or you can look directly ahead in the same direction as your chest. Let's reach out into the fingertips. Let's just pull the hands back a little together, a little bit more engagement in the upper back. A little more stability in the shoulder blades. Keep the breath flowing. Okay, now let's take this over into a Parsvakonasana style posture. If you need to extend out that leg first of all, go ahead and then come down. We can bring our forearm onto the thigh. And if this feels a little awkward from this position, you are welcome to bring the hand down behind the leg or in front of the leg. But let's focus on this length here through the right side of the body. And use that purchase through the forearm against the thigh to create that lift. Find the pathway of the breath. So we return to it even when we stray from it, we keep coming back to it. Okay, let's bring ourselves back over now. So we're going to lean back, staying forwards in this lunge type action, bringing the back arm down, bringing the front arm up. Keep that tone in the belly and lifting the chest as you breathe. Okay, well done. Let's bring ourselves up and feel into any movement. If you need to release that back knee, if it's not happy kneeling for so long, you can lean forward, you can tuck the toes, lift the knee up and come back down, give it a little movement. Okay, so our mini Trikonasana style posture. Let's lift up onto the back of the heel of this leg. Let's rise up, tone the belly, lift the chest. Let's rise up our lead arm, our left arm. Find the breath here. And again, whilst keeping this tone in the belly and this length between the navel and the breastbone, we're going to hinge over that leg so we can feel the crease at the top of the thigh deepening as we tip, using the pelvis to tip ourselves over, and then we'll raise the other arm up. Breath is flowing. It's pulling us into its stream. Okay. Wonderful. Let's bring ourselves up. Well done. Find the breath. Okay, so we're going to take this turn towards the short end of our mat. So we can bring our hands down so we can rotate on that back knee. We can lift the knee and lower it down with that. Let's just lift the knee for a moment because we probably want a little bit of space there. Have a little bounce around through the ball of the back foot. It probably bring a little freedom into the knee. And then again, we're going to come into this position and we'll just play with a little bit of movement here. So that's it, we can breathe. Okay, now we're going to extend out that front leg. So again, bringing that leg to straight, you might need to shimmy your foot a little further forward so we can come onto the back of the heel. We can have some blocks either side of us. Make sure that you've got a bit of space down through the midline of your mat too. So you're not bringing this front foot directly in front of the back leg. So we're able to keep our pelvis towards being level with the short end of our mat. Okay, let's lift up. Let's again tip from the hip joints and we'll come down over onto our blocks. And we'll take some breaths in. And again, we wait. But we wait with awareness. So this is patience that we bring to this. So what we're doing in this is allowing the body to release in its own time, to give to this. And it needs the pathway of the breath for that to happen. In fact, I would go as far to say as that we can't release without the breath. It's not possible. Okay, well done. Let's bring ourselves up. Let's bend that front knee, and again, we'll lean forwards and bring our hands to the floor so we can lift up that back knee. We can be in this lunge type position. We can play around with any movement that the body needs here. And then we'll place our hands flat to the floor, shoulder width apart, and we'll step ourselves back into a downward facing dog. Now let's really feel into that extension through the body. We can work the body through this, maybe playing with a little bit of movement if that's helpful. And by helpful, I mean it's helpful to the goal of release. It's helpful to this pathway that we want to follow, that takes us into focus, that takes us into meditation, that takes us into absorption. The pathway of samyama yoga. The three qualities of what's known as the inner limbs of yoga. And we play and we move and we breathe. And we lengthen and we lift and we respond, and if we need to come down, we come down. But every action that we choose to put into this practice is with the purpose of this ultimate goal of absorption. Okay, well done. Let's bring our knees down to the floor. Let's take a breath here. We're going to come down onto our forearms and we're going to flip our palms up towards the ceiling. And we're going to take a few breaths here. So this just brings a little bit of release to the wrists and the palms of the hands from the weight bearing. We can play with a little bit of movement back and forth. So we can lean forwards towards the forearms. We can pull the hips back, pull the pelvis back to stretch out the body. And we should find that this brings some release from our Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. And then we'll pause. We'll find the breath here. Okay. Let's take the knees apart. Let's draw ourselves back towards our heels. You're welcome to do this with support between buttocks and heels, with support for your head if you wish in any form. So we're drawing back to a balasana, to a child pose. Maybe you've got a bolster that you want to fold over as well. So I'm happy for you to take any variation of the posture. And then drop into it. Drop into the freedom of it. It's called child pose, and perhaps, we can relate to that kind of in a way, lack of responsibility that we might have as a child. And then as an adult, we kind of build up this sense of self, this sense of being somebody who has important things that they need to do and achieve. So as we drop back into our child pose, perhaps we can remember that freedom of not having those responsibilities. The freedom of what lies underneath the layers of being that we build up. Okay, well done. Let's bring ourselves up. We're going to lean forwards again onto our hands and knees. You might need to give the legs a little stretch out, and maybe you can extend the leg and swing the knee forward so you can just stretch out around the hip and groin area and release. And we're going to come up. Sorry, I've got to take my hair back behind me, but stay on your hands and knees. We're going to come into what is like a little mini Ardha Chandrasana. Okay, so we're going to have our hands shoulder width apart. We're going to have our knees in towards each other, so they're more in line with the center line of the mat. You're going to extend back your leg that's closest to the screen, and we're going to raise that leg up, and we're going to allow this external rotation. We're then going to raise up the same arm if we can, if we feel steady, but you can keep the fingertips down as long as you need to. But if you feel nice and steady, we'll raise that arm up. Maybe we'll place the arm along the side of the body to rest the hand on the thigh, or we can extend that arm up. So if you feel steady and balanced, and we can move this supporting hand. You can move it out a little wider if you need to for the purpose of balance. Take some deep breaths. Okay, well done. Let's bring that top arm down, hand to the floor. Release the leg down. Take a little bit of movement here as you need to. Maybe there's a little sway through the hips, a little roll through the spine, some deeper breaths. So orientate yourself back to that pathway of the breath. It's there as your support. Okay, we're going to move to the other side so you can extend your leg that's furthest from the screen back. And then again, you can make that little rotation. So you're letting the hip open. So you're letting the leg move into external rotation. In other words, we can bring the arm along the side of the body if we feel steady enough to lift that arm up off the floor, but it's fine to keep the fingertips down if you're struggling with balance this morning. Or you can raise that arm up towards the ceiling. Let's deepen the supporting hand into the floor. Let's tone the belly. Let's lengthen into the chest and reach into the foot and the top arm. So there's a sense of extending through all limbs in all directions. Let your extension be pervasive, like the Yana Vayu, the pervasive internal flame. Okay, let's bring our hands down. Let's rotate ourselves back towards the floor. Feel into any movement here on the hands and knees. Draw back, draw forwards, roll through the spine, roll through the hips. Just play around as we often do in this position to feel into freedom, our ultimate goal of yoga. Okay, we're going to pick it up when you're ready again into a downward facing dog. So tuck your toes, lift the knees, lift and extend, draw back, Let the breath flow. Just give to this. Anytime you need to release, you can release, of course. But do check that that release isn't coming out of something that is, perhaps driven by boredom, driven by impatience, driven by, a sense of not wanting to challenge ourselves at all, because part of our yoga practice is challenge. It's a huge part of the path that challenges samskaras, that challenges karma, action. So it's not that we're always looking for this path of least resistance. We use resistance positively. So if you're resisting the stretch because actually what you really want to do is just lie down, it might be that, we stay there a little longer. We inquire into the nature of it. Okay, let's bring the knees down. Let's sit back on our heels, back into our Vajrasana. Take support if you need it. Rest your hands there in your lap. Feel into the flow of the breath. And we can feel our return to its path. And maybe what we feel in the pathway of the breath, we now having moved our body and started to loosen up through the body, starting to release any holding in the body, is that the pathway of the breath feels like it broadens. It's less of a sort of narrow pathway that's difficult to stay on. It's broad, it's wide, it's completely encompassing. It holds us. It becomes more difficult for us to stray from that pathway as we let go into it. Okay. Let's ease out of our Vajrasana. We're going to come forwards again. We're going to come into a downward facing dog once more, but we're going to use it to transition into a head up dog. But don't worry, we're not going to transition through Chaturanga Dandasana because that's just a step too far this time in the morning. So we're going to come up into our downward facing dog. So let's lift and lengthen and breathe into it. That's it, opening the armpits, and feel how wonderful that feels to open the armpits, to place some attention there. This is a practice in the Vijnana Bhairava Tantra to, maybe in a seated position, having your arms above your head, and then focus on your armpits. Because it's part of our experience that perhaps we don't often focus on. So it kind of challenges our perception. So let's feel into the armpits for a moment. Okay, now let's take a little lean forward. So we're coming towards a plank posture. So we can make that straight line through the legs, through the torso. And then we're going to pull our chest through the arms. So we're going to keep our legs off the floor. So it's just hands and feet on the floor. You might find that you prefer to roll over onto the tops of your feet. Some people prefer to keep their toes tucked. Partly depends on body proportions and movement in the lower back. You can broaden across your chest. You can press into your hands and you can breathe. Try not to grip the buttocks together. They may tone, but they're not squeezing in towards each other. Okay, well done. Let's bring the knees to the floor. Let's walk ourselves back, sit in Vajrasana, and you might find if there's any tightness in the lower back, that popping a block between your buttocks and heels gives you another level of space there. Okay. We're just letting the breath go. So once we've found that ease in the lower back, you can sit here as long as you need to find that ease. We're going to release. We're going to come down onto our back. We are going to be preparing for Shavasana. So, of course, if you want anything warmer to put on, you're welcome to do that now. But we'll come down via this position with our feet on the floor, often called constructive rest pose. So there's a little distance there between the buttocks and the feet. And again, we're looking for that peacefulness in the lower back. What we often find is that the body quite enjoys a little twist after a back arch, kind of releases any remaining holding. So we can just take our arms out wide at about shoulder height, and we'll just go for this nice open spacious twist of dropping the knees or lowering the knees from side to side as we breathe. Okay. We'll bring ourselves back into the center. If you now feel like you want to have the hug of the knees into the chest, go ahead and a little rock out like we did at the beginning of the class. You're welcome to. And then we're going to lay ourselves down for Shavasana. So the feet will be around about hip width apart. The arms will either be a little away from the body like this. So we extend the arms out with the palms facing up. So again, we've got that little bit of space in the armpits. And that allows the shoulders to release. It allows the chest to be open. Or we can place our hands on the torso. We've still got that space in the armpits. That's key. You might want some support behind your head. You might want some support behind your knees. And you'll probably need to lift and lengthen out the lower back, pressing the feet into the floor, lifting the pelvis and reaching it towards the feet before you lay down. So once you've prepped yourselves to lay down, you may then close your eyes. So as always, I will indicate when we get to 7:30 for those of you who may need to get up and on with your day, but may give us an extra couple of minutes for those of us who've got a little bit more time. So let's just start by taking some slower, deeper breaths. And again, we take those initial deeper breaths. They're kind of like a reset for the body. They're a means of gathering us into the breath. And again, we find that pathway of the breath. And we stay on the path. And as we let go into this, as the breath softens, the path broadens. It's not an effort for us to follow the path, but it's clear. It's free of obstacles. So if you are restricted by time, you will need to start exiting your Shavasana now. But if if you're able to stay a little longer, just for a few more breaths, let's do that. And of course, you are welcome to stay as long as you like. If you can stay even longer, go ahead. Stay. But we'll bend the knees and place the feet to the floor. If you're happy to come out now, you may need to adjust your pelvis when you do this. Just again, intuitively respond to your body. And then you may gently roll onto one side and pause there. And if you're happy to roll onto both sides, you may roll onto your other side and pause there. And then when you're ready, you may bring yourselves up from your side if you're coming up and out, and it's fine if you're not. But I'm going to close our practice with a single Om, which you're welcome to join me for if you wish. So sitting in any comfortable seated posture, bringing your hands into Anjali Mudra, and we'll take a breath in to prepare. Thank you all very much. Namaste, Namo Buddhaya. Reverence to you all. Wonderful to see you all. So nice to spend this early morning with you and see the sun coming up.